region, and both good teams internationally, although as Fresh said, they have never gone the whole way. One of them is going to at least get to the finals here now. Just a quick history lesson before we jump into this one. They've played each other a couple of times, and by a couple I literally mean two. The only real one of note is going to be in 2021 at SI, where the map was Oregon, and the map was won very convincingly by BDS. Obviously, that is a heck of a long time ago. A lot of things have changed, but it'd be nice for Liquid to be able to level that up to one apiece.
No surprises really on the bans so far. Liquid not wanting to deal with the countercade pressure coming in, especially on basement hatch play. A few other areas where it could become problematic as well, so they'll be knocking him out. And then finally, again, a pretty standard ban here with Mira being the last one to be removed from play. That'll take us into the first round. If you didn't catch it on the top of your screen, it's now in the middle, as well as Team Liquid starting on the attack, BDS on the defense. More than likely expect that basement start for BDS here as we get ready to jump into the first round.
No one wants to deal with Ying these days, do they? Ying is fastly becoming one of the most banned attackers. And I think at least inside of Gamers8, Ying has seen some of the most bans attracted throughout the entire attacking pool. And of course, one of the reasons for that is these aggressive and coordinated pushes, especially onto somewhere like the basement. It can be just a little too much to deal with. Now, obviously, with the Thatcher and the Cade ban, it does make life a tad easier for the attackers. Although, if Breeday's just going to open the hatch for you, then, I mean, I guess it's a moot point, right?
Not too much of an issue there, as clearly BDS want to bait their opponents into that a little bit. Liquid would be able to get that open eventually anyway, and with Cade banned out, there's not really anything they could use to prevent it. So as you said, just make it a bit more easy for the players on the attacking side. Away from that, though, no huge surprises, especially when it comes to our defensive lineup. No repicks either, as Liquid will be satisfied with what they bring. Interesting that we'll see a Lion here for PSK specifically. Have to see how that's going to be used, either to suss out some of these early extensions from BDS, such as into the small tower, as well as yellow that we're seeing now, or if it's going to be saved more so to confuse on the execute.
I think Fresh is probably mauling right now because Shaiko has been allowed to get the Valkyrie again. It's been a hot topic of conversation throughout the course so far. Palu, though, storms his way in, immediately taking down Renshiro. Renshiro was getting caught in full sprint animation then. Unfortunate timing indeed, as Liquid, they've not wasted any time getting themselves established upstairs.
But indeed, coming in with a booming start to this one, knocking out Renshiro. That'll remove the mute. Obviously, not the end of the world, leaving the mute out of it, as his utility will have been deployed in the prep phase, but still gonna hurt here in the long run, as Liquid will certainly have a lot of confidence to clear out the rest of the upstairs, as well as probably the first floor here. I'll just pull land hammer for him. Quick adjustment, though. He's able to knock that down and establish this angle to possibly knock out the next target. Alem's actually going to be sticking around the challenge. This explains the reason why we had the electrical hatch left open. So Alem's can still play this safely and nicely done. Remains stable despite the first shot coming out against him, and he's able to return fire with a clean headshot to knock out Palu.
Great play by Alem's, a real big playmaker so far for BDS inside of the tournament. He steps up there again, managed to get the fadeaway shot. May have given up the control of meeting, but he's got a very important kill back onto Palu, removing a couple of the nades. Only 2 left now in the hands of Resets. And of course, you want that fragging power that Palu brings at the later point inside of the round. Liquid now just looking to stabilize. They can see, obviously, that the meeting hatch is open. And Alems is going to be throwing as many Keeper barricades down as he can on that basement level just to assist some of these angles. BDS have a good hold currently on that back stair. They've actually used one of the Keeper barriers to block up the electrical door as well. We're going to see the wall get open now just to give a little bit of a line of sight onto the back stairs. And it looks as though Nesk is going to be tasked with the difficult job of pushing down Freezer, excuse me.
Keep a barricade going to come out for Alems as well to allow more extended play to the depths of Freezer. Nade coming out from Resets as well, but it's not going to find a target, and he gets baited into thinking there'd be one in Laundry. That'll lead to his elimination, but Liquid already making up for it. Ness can now ask for a second one. Able to bring it all down to Shaiko here in a 1v3. No way to deny the plan either. He's got a hot ping onto at least one member of the opposing squad, but it's going to end up being bad intel as he moves himself out. Won't be able to find the lineup for it this far back. Has to adventure a bit further forward to be able to knock one of these players out. The longer he waits, the more secure the members of Team Liquid will be. Already moving the planter way upstairs to play a hatch position. This is going to be rough for Shaiko, and more than likely, we're going to be looking at round 1 going into the pocket of Team Liquid.
Got another line scanner coming out there just to seal the deal here. Liquid aren't peeking onto this one little bit. Nesk, he knows he's got the heads up in this gunfight. He knows he's got the advantage. Still doesn't want to take it. Shaiko, full white flash, 12 seconds left. Gets a glimpse at someone at the bottom of main stairs, but look at Liquid, patience of saints. They are not looking to move at all. Nesk finally hits him with a little bit of a swing as the time was already ticking too low. A difficult job to push through that freezer, but Liquid made it look easy.
Definitely the case. Liquid really giving themselves off to a booming start in that round as well, finding the first kill on the second floor inside, I believe, the first 30 or 40 seconds, so beautifully done. Liquid never taking a foot off the gas pedal. Good attempts from Lems and some of the other members on BDS to resist it, but the entry power just far too strong, as well as the plan to actually clear out the interior of the site. BDS just could not contend against it, and as we see, Shaiko as well did not stand a chance in the 1v3.
Got a couple of great shots there of Nest picking up a couple of those kills inside of the freezer. Not going to be able to do that this round, though. BDS are going to stick to a rotation. They're not going to re-attempt downstairs, and instead they're going to take us up to Kids Dorms. Not too much of a change in terms of the lineup, other than Lems bringing Oryx. Speaks to a little bit more flexibility there, getting himself in and around. He's going to be opening up a couple of hatches, giving himself some options for later on into the round. Liquid with a couple of little six picks of their own. Nothing too drastic, swapping operators between Resets and Nesk. Palu just going to 6 off. In fact, it's almost it's a full 4-way switch, that, isn't it, really? They're going for a heck of a different lineup. PSK on the nook. Excuse me, what's going on here? PSK is usually flank watch, dirty work. He doesn't get the glamorous jobs.
He's going to take charge a little bit on this round here. Liquid switching things up, maybe expecting to see that basement play repeat itself, but surprise as BDS moves themselves on to the second floor instead. Either way, this lineup that Liquid have is going to work perfectly fine for the assault of the second floor. You also have that active resistance that's going to show up all across the second floor here, even extending into Arsenal, which could be a little bit dangerous from time to time for our defenders because of the angles the attackers will have access to right at the beginning of the round. But as you can see here on Shiro, he has options specifically to get himself across the hall into Master. So this plan is not without its own merit. Resets and the rest of Liquid, though, just be getting their initial clear, as you can see over here towards Small Tower. They don't want to deal with some jump out at the midpoint of this round from that Small Tower. It's more like I can expect some contention towards the big window to try and play into these two sites.
Ranchiro there, ready to replace the Kiba barricade. He's got a couple knocking around there inside of bedroom, one inside of armory as well. Just cutting off these angles and giving Liquid a little bit less to play with. Looks like PSK is going to go for a little bit of a drone here. It's a drone position that you can certainly take into your ranked games if you wish, but he gets a bit of info, knows that somebody's going to be inside of Kids. It's fairly obvious that somebody will be playing in there, but it allows Nesk now to do the same and just check out that dorms area.
Already making progress at opening up the angle to access the attic for themselves. That'll lead directly into the site once they're ready to go for it here. The rest of the squad not able to make progress on a secondary angle just as of yet, though, but they have the presence, as you can see, once again, near that big window that we discussed earlier. Going to be focusing on the drone play now, as they still have the threat of Rafal from down below, and that's going to be problematic if they try to boost forward through attic and take direct control of the second floor. Going to need to keep a constant flank watch if that'll be the case due to this player downstairs, and that's assuming, of course, the Liquid have actually caught them. I believe that is the case, and indeed, we'll see it now, as Ask has a direct drone on top of that, but still, first kill of the round ends up going to BDS. Lems' extended position works out well for him. He'll be able to frag out Palu. That's going to eliminate the Yana as well, so that extra intel that would have come in for the clone now gone. Nesk as well, directly challenging Rafal, but almost doesn't seem ready for the fight when he's thrust into it. So he goes down. Ask will be able to correct slightly, and now even the numbers out as he gets 2 on his entry into games.
Reset's just having a little bit of a hard time there with the lifeline. Is going to get himself caught here. Takes a lot of damage, but he's got the LMG and he can continue to take this engagement. But look at the team play. BDS are there ready to collect as one turns tail and runs the other way. Another appears out of the shadows.
BDS keep themselves tricky inside of that round, constantly shifting the positions around and constantly keeping Team Liquid guessing, always forcing them to try and make up for deficits with kills, as we saw there in the midpoint of that round when they went for the entry on games, but it proved to not be enough. The refrags and the re-entry into the site from BDS holds true, and they tie it up now at 1-1, moving us into round 3 here. We'll have to see who takes charge. Obviously, BDS not really going to be wanting to go for the tertiary site just yet. There is going to be a slight change up to the strategy, though, at least, as we move back down to the basement. As at least they'll bring a Thunderbird into this one to give them a little bit more fighting capability as we get towards the later portion of the round.
I think the Thunderbird's a bit of a strange one because I don't recall lots of nades being prevalent. Partly Shaw lost his life first, so wouldn't have been there to use the nades, and you know, he lost 2 essentially as soon as he fell. There was another 2 in the hands of resets, I believe it was, but we didn't see them really come through. Obviously Thunderbird is there to give you a little bit of a juice up, give you that little bit of a stim, but you don't really want to be relying on taking a gunfight and then running back to it. It's more just a nice to have. Usually you're looking to try and burn some utility with that and tank a few nades, get yourself into a bit of a riskier situation, then run back and juice back up. We'll have to see if Liquid have that same success on the entry though, as that was really what you could credit round number 1-2 for.
Just the usual opening of those first few windows and doors here for Liquids. Nothing crazy going to be going on inside of this first minute. BDS does have that extension to play out a little bit more, as we can see on both the first and second floor. Definitely wanting to play around with this, especially considering they have the Thunderbird, as now they are able to gain a little bit of that HP back if things go awry and they lose a portion of their health before they are able to get themselves back into the basement. Away from that, though, are going to see some earlier retreats, especially from players like Lems. Just wanted to poke out from the top freezer stairs and see if he could maybe get lucky with the pick there. Not going to be able to find it. You can see that Liquid has taken full control of the kitchen as well as dining area. So that'll more than likely move them to the hatch breaching phase of the round, which then they can begin to focus on how they'll make their descent into the basement.
Clearing the way.
A little bit of a rejuggle of some utility here as Rafal replaces an ADS, realizing that a push is coming in from that direction now. Nesk looking to take his stand inside of Freezer, somewhere that he was very successful previously, and this is almost a full utility switch around here from BDS. They're making rotations, they've moved the deployable shield off the 90 elbow inside of blue, and instead they're going to play it the other way, looking into laundry. They've got the time to do so, and they also have that utility still there, because Liquid haven't directly pressured. They haven't been interested in pushing in through bunker, and they haven't really been too interested in those back stairs. Obviously, knowing that Shaiko is going to be in and around that area, it's somewhere that you're worth steering clear of.
Players starting to begin poking down into the basement here, and the first volley from BDS is not going to ring true here. Adrenal Surge to boost the play from Liquid as well. We're not seeing them boom into the site just as of yet. Need to try and get that first entry, which will activate the rest of the team more than likely, give them the confidence they need to move forward. Thankfully, BDS has been saving their delay utility here. The first of the 3 Toxic Babes, only just now going to come out from Playday over at the 90 wrap inside of Freezer here. He can extend that probably to right around the 20-second marker on this round, but there is going to be breaching charges moving in from the Zofia now as the team attempts to work their way forward. It'll work out for Liquid too as PSK strikes first, resets with the second pickup, and they're going to swarm in, completely surrounding the BDS roster. Lems will get 1 exchange, but otherwise it's perfect from Liquid as they once again take control of the basement defense.
We had a great overhead view of that as well. It was like wolves circling some prey. You know, Team Liquid were just firing themselves through. Very well timed, very well coordinated. BDS, they're just getting caught flat-footed. What can you do? If someone's willing to tank a little bit of Toxic Babe damage because you know that you've got someone pushing in from the other side and you have to be in position at all costs, and the kills start flying like that, those LMGs, there's not a great deal that you can do to stop it. Not only did we have resets, but we also had Nesk, 2 of the best LMGs in the game right now. They can take multiple engagements, no sweat whatsoever. Basement, so far, is something that BDS are struggling to keep a hold of, and that doesn't usually bode well for an Oregon.
Even worse as well, they don't really seem too confident in potentially trying out their tertiary site on the first floor, so this is going to start to look a little bit rough for them if Liquid continue to take control. Obviously, they realized that the Thunderbird in the last round wasn't really a great idea. I agree with that. They weren't really able to use it too much for their roam game as they got killed pretty much instantly, and inside of the site, the execute from Liquid was just far too quick to realistically make use out of any of those Kona stations, so without that delay, BDS is not going to find a use from those healing stations, and they'll get ready for go to a much more traditional setup to try and hold basement. And again, I think they're going to try to do it in that bunker style way here that would work a little bit better for them, but overall still a very one-sided round for Liquid.
They're bringing the catches this time, aren't they? They've doubled down. They've got the Jaeger and the Wamai. They've got rid of the Thunderbird, as you say. It speaks to, right, we're just going to try and do this a little bit better. Still send a Lems to play loose on the Malusi at the start of the round and see if there's anyone that he can pick up for free. Even if he just denies a couple of drones and gets himself back alive, it'd be a job well done, but instead gets a freebie. That's a real big miss drone from Liquid as Nesk is going to fall here.
Lems perfectly free to get himself back downstairs as well, as Nesk was very much proceeding on his lonesome. Zero support for him in that avenue, so no chance of a trade to show up anytime soon to get revenge for Nesk's death. The rest of the team now just going to safely tuck themselves away here in the basement. No further extensions, so Liquid will have full control over the first and second floors. It'll take them a moment to realize that, but as we spoke about last round, just move on to the hatch breaching phase and then try to clear things out from there. And you can see that they don't necessarily know that these players have fallen back yet. Just a few pre-fires coming out from Liquid as they try to move into security. But other than that, things are going to go quiet for the next minute or so here as Liquid starts to postulate how they'll be able to work themselves into the basement now without their Sophia.
It's a really big operator to lose as well. Think about the role that Nesk has been playing. He's been so consistent inside of Freezer. He might be sat at 4 and 3, but he's had some very impactful kills. And without that now, someone's going to have to plug that gap. And that means that you're going to have to look to someone like PSK or Palu to go and do that job. And neither of those two operators, no one really is going to do it as well as a Zofia could or would. And couple into that, you're going to lose the LMG as well, which Liquid have been relying on, as do many attacking teams inside of the current meta. And you do just fear that without that alternate angle, without that third-pronged push, Liquid might look to go for something a little bit different here.
Statistically, they could try to put Ask in the front of this. He's had some good results on entry, specifically for the second floor clear, but obviously he's playing a much more pivotal role right now, and he's got limited ammo to work with. There we go, the resets in Palu, able to hold on, but Ask will be lost in the process, so somebody's gonna have to put that case down on the ground regardless. Numbers are even, and there's a good amount of excess time still for Liquid as well, but they're in a bit of an awkward position now. Resets only just barely able to get himself down that back staircase. A little bit worried about someone potentially peeking out from the hall doorway as well, so I'm gonna keep constant overwatch on that Palu when I move in to check the angle and gets a swinging headshot against the Lems as well. So Liquid with some great control, finally able to stabilize a plant position for themselves. They'll go for it. This Toxic Babe is going to show up too late. And oh, great pickup as well from Resets, but the shotgun shell went out and it denied the plant, but it won't matter as the trades come in too strong from Liquid and they win it on the TDM.
Resets is built differently. That is not the first time he's had a huge round here in Gamers8. The fearlessness from Palu to plant. I was looking at it, I was going, oh, that looks so risky. Man, that looks so risky. But he knows that he's got his teammates covering his back. And sure, he gets swung. He gets the shotgun blast to the face, but the trade, bam, it's immediately there. Liquid did an incredible job of salvaging that round. And it was all down to a really ballsy play. They dropped E-Box. Dropping the electrical hatch very rarely works. Usually you are dropping into an absolute meat grinder. And it's crossfires galore. There's Toxic Babe canisters. You maybe throw a C4 into the mix. And somehow they had managed to pre-drone enough and gather enough information. We saw as Palu dropped the hatch. He was already trained onto one of the members of BDS. He knew exactly where they were. He had the red ping, and it's a pre-fire at that point, and he wins it out. And that was just the start of what came to be a bit of an avalanche there for Liquid. BDS really struggling on that ground floor, even when things look like they're going their way.
Great adjustment coming in from Team Liquid as well, immediately making up for the mistake that happened at the beginning of the round with regards to how they lost Nesk on the Zofia, but thankfully was able to group themselves up and play a strong buddy system, even with that risky plant too. We saw how quickly the player that took down the planter goes down. So Liquid realizing that potential issue is going to maybe stop them from closing it out, and they are able to win now a third round on the basement attack. BDS breathing a sigh of relief as obviously they've now unlocked the second floor for play again, but this is going to be the only site they've locked down so far, and obviously they win this one, they can't play it on the 6th, so what do? Do they try to go for basement for a 4th time, or do they finally bring out one of their kitchen sites and attempt to win a third round there? And that's still assuming they're able to get this second, of course.
I can't recall the last time I've seen a 2-4 split for attackers on Oregon. It's not something that happens all the time, especially when you're dealing with two teams at this sort of a level. It might be something that happens occasionally with some of the tier 3 teams that we've got inside of the competition in their home region, but realistically, you shouldn't be dealing with that kind of a scoreline when you've got a team like BDS facing off against Liquid. But Liquid really are just one step ahead today. They look incredibly sharp. Maybe sharp enough to make it 5-1, we'll have to see. They didn't do fantastically in the early part of the round. I think there was a lot of bad information that got exchanged last time they attacked onto the top floor, and there was a really aggressive roam again coming from Lems, particularly playing on the Oryx. He's going to be doing the same here and now. One of the biggest problems was the hatch inside of Attic. Sure, you can get Attic wall open, but if there's going to be defenders playing in Meeting, there's no real point in going through there. You need to clear out Meeting as well.
So with already half the round gone, a relatively quiet one so far, BDS have to start getting a little bit worried considering how Liquid was able to come in with a booming execute on the last basement round, especially with the one before that as well. know that they're going to be building up an intel bank, and it's already wasted, not wasted, but used half their drone count in the process. They're trying to pick up this information. Finally going to start to see them venture forward a little bit. Obviously, they have the attic hatch access, but there is going to be someone else from BDS on the other side of it. Lems will start to try and pick this off, and he was able to get one on the previous defense, too. Led into the reasoning as to how BDS was able to at least start to fend off some of this pressure from Liquid, and it's that same puzzle again that they'll have to solve here on round number 5. Liquid doesn't necessarily seem to have an easy solution to it either. Still just postulating, waiting for a mistake maybe to come out from BDS, but it's not happening. BDS's setup's going to remain stable as a rock. It's up to Liquid to change up that fate, and finally Paulo will do so, catching an off-screen kill. Lems will be able to quickly trade that back though, so we go immediately into a 4v4. Rest of the team attempts to swing at action, but Reset has been held up at the big window because of a toxic base. That's going to stall probably the rest of this as well. Shaiko with one, Lems with a second from down below underneath of the attic catch, and that's going to leave Liquid, unfortunately, without really the capability to force their way into it. They'll just have to try and brute force the issue. Ask will be able to find the back of Lems, taking him down at least, but Shaiko immediately handles the exchange. And for PSK, nicely done in this first fight, but look at his HP. One bullet away from going down, 3 seconds away from the round ending. Also, it's just not going to happen. And finally, BDS will piece together a second round now.
Liquid really can't seem to crack that, can they? It seems very difficult for them to understand that there are two players inside of meeting. Rafal backing up Lems, and they played it fantastically. Sure, you might lose Rafal, but if Lems is there, then it doesn't really matter. It is a one-for-one trade, and especially with Lems having the capability to hop up through the hatch on the old Oryx. Sure got traded out, but the damage at that point was done. And you've got to question PSK on the Nook again. It just doesn't seem to do anything. We've obviously not got to see the intention behind that pick, but it just doesn't seem to have that same sort of bite that you would expect if you're going to have someone on a Nook, maybe crouch walking in. So maybe we get to see it at some point here, but at least it isn't going to be now. BDS are finally risking it, Blue. They are finally going to something that isn't downstairs.
You would think that'd be great for trying to sneak through like the small tower areas that looked relatively undefended, and maybe trying to take out someone like a Lems who had been waiting out at beating, using the attack utility to maybe use that, but just never ends up happening. So unfortunate for Team Liquid, but I doubt they're losing too much sleep over that round, considering how they've been able to handle at least the rest of these basement attacks. Now, this is the big question we were asking at the beginning of the last round as well. Is BDS going to have a strong showing here on their first floor hold, considering they avoided it despite 3 consecutive losses on the basement up until this very point? And obviously, this will be the very last round they have here on this half, so they have to hope they can make that impact and bring things to an even keel here at 3-3.
I think the Liquid are looking at this stunned, like, oh, I thought these guys were giving it to us. I thought we were just going to go rinse and repeat downstairs in basement again. We've got to actually try now. We've got to deal with the tertiary site. Right, get yourself in gear, guys. What are we going to do? Well, for the meantime, we've seen PSK pick onto the Nomad, so they're finally starting to address this roam game that BDS have been playing and the aggressive nature that Lems is bringing to this matchup. How much impact it will have does remain to be seen. But top 4 is usually a pretty good place to start. Top 4 clear is going to start to be put into action here, as we see the generator wall opened up there by Ask. Not looking to poke his head into it just yet, though, as there are plenty of heads here from BDS. They've got a real heavy top floor here, and they've got a lot of utility to chew through. Nesk, though, could have a little bit of an opportunity here up White Stairs. Nobody knows he's here. I'm not sure how he's managed to sneak his way into this position, but if he's patient enough, he might be rewarded.
Rest of Liquid here. Gonna build up the confidence to move themselves in. Nesk as well, deploying that utility to deal with the extensions. Using a lot of utility to box these players out. The good news is once they have the upstairs access, it will be a pivotal key to moving themselves downstairs as well here. Rafal could keep a barricade. I believe the secondary breach on the Selma, though, is going to take it out before it can fully spread. So unfortunate. Won't be able to use that as much as he would have liked there. Away from that, we'll see him and a few of these other players start to fall back. Rafal, good thing he moves back too. He's nearly roasted by a frag grenade, down to about 20 HP now. They'll reconfirm his position, won't be able to contend from it though, as Ask quickly clips him off with the 1 bullet needed to finish him off. That's Liquid on the right foot forward, but time is quickly ticking down, so they have to move quickly from this point forward with only a minute remaining.
Bomb located by
this is where Paulo is going to get in and work his magic. Lems still with the option for a rotation here. Ask, meanwhile, takes down Renshiro, but Lems could cause all the damage required here. Freebie over onto Ask. His spidey senses were tingling. Ask was looking the right way, but he just got caught entirely off guard. Need now to retrieve that diffuser. Paulo going to try and throw a nade in deep, and he does, but it doesn't deal the finishing blow. Lems instead going to scurry away with just less than half HP.
Resets as well, not with the confidence to move forward. Can't really sound out the Geminis. I'm pretty sure he's alone as well. So it'd be too risky to try and put himself into that state without someone to make sure he doesn't get refragged here. Away from that, Shaiko now paying attention as the floor is quickly coming down from above him. Speaking of which, we've got players coming down as well. Shaiko ready for the initial challenge from Ness, but PSK will use that as a bait to trade it back out. Resets, confirms the rotation coming in from Alems and knocks him out as well, leaving it all on to Playday here in the 1v3. Playday will confirm the planter by finishing him off at least with the Toxic Babe, but he's still got 2 players to go. One's above him as well. He's got one of his own Toxic Babes sitting over the top of the case. Knows he won't have to worry about much in that department, but where exactly is this upstairs player going to be? He can truly only guess here. There's going to be a real lack for intel. I like to play again with the Babe here. It is going to hopefully fend off a winning angle, which could stop him from counter-defusing from up on top, but still, he's struggling to find this second player. Not going to be able to make it happen. Palu shuts it down, and it's indeed that 4-2 attacker-sided scoreline coming in for Liquid at the halfway mark.
Liquid are going to be pleased with themselves. That was a really good example of how they were able to adapt on the fly. Not the most straightforward of upstairs holds to crack there. You've got the keeper barriers, you've got Alems playing out there on the roam. One of the gunfights I really want to go back and see, and I hope we catch it in this, is I want to know how Nesk loses to Shaiko here. That was a scrappy gunfight from 2 of the best gunners that we've got in the entire game. You don't often see them going head-to-head like that, and both of them whiffing shots. Shaiko came off the better, but PSK was there for that all-important trade and to get the plant down, which ultimately was Liquid's win condition. Down to the basement we go here for Liquid's turn on the defense. Surely we've got to see a defending team win down here, Blue.
This has to be the lowest basement win rate in any game I've ever seen, at least. So we're going to have to hope that Liquid can be able to pick at least a 1 up and start to change it. Would move us up to a 25% defensive win rate on this site for this map, as currently it's sitting at a fat 0. 3 attempts from BDS over the course of the previous half, not one of them being successful despite multiple strategy and operator lineup changes as well. Just could not get it to work, only able to find that success on the second floor site, and of course the repeat of that later on in the game. Let's see how Liquid fares for it though, as they've got BDS out and about here. Double hard breach for them, just a little bit of a backup in the event that Playday should go down earlier on in the round. And away from that, you're expecting utility. We are going to get that Nook once again for Alems to see if he could sneak anything in from construction or any other parts of the map here, potentially to help with clearing out the roam game as well, as we do have quite a bit of it from Liquid. Nesk extended all the way up to the second floor. Currently only 1 player from Liquid actually in the basement.
Fortunately, they've got a couple of hatches open to work with, so they can have a reasonably quick drop down in. Lem's already getting himself into flags. He does have a drone working at his feet. You can hear that much is clear. The hatch and meeting will be closed. But look at the ground that he's been able to take here. Now, obviously his team isn't necessarily with him. He does have a drone knocking around, so he's going to have an idea of what's going on. Shaiko maybe now trying to jump in and just confirm that kitchen is indeed clear as well, as Alems really is on the hunt here. With the hatch open upstairs, he could do worse than just sit and watch that for a few seconds. But as we can see, Liquid, they have managed to sneak past, and they have retreated back down to the site.
Liquid quite elusive, not really able to obviously get in the way of BDS's clear here by taking out any of their players, but obviously not losing anything on their own regard either. So just gaining some intel, wasting out some time with postulating positions, but once more not wanting to take those risks on losing themselves entirely. They fall back. Nice clutch magnet here. Eats up Shaiko's nade as he was trying to bank it into the corner. Don't believe we had any presence from Team Liquid there at that point. The second one as well. Also going to get gobbled up here. So no luck, and the utility will be pretty minimal in terms of what it's taking out as well.
You hope Shaiko hasn't got a Gon 6 in his back pocket. We've got plenty of nades on the side of BDS. There's the Gon 6. I mean, why wouldn't you use it then? At least he knows that he's dealt everything he could possibly deal now, and he has eaten up a few of those magnets, ready for either Renshiro, Rafale, or Alems to use any of their frag grenades on the problem, and that's what we're going to see now. Rafale is going to make his way on down. Another magnet. PSK's been a busy
3 frags now.
He's been a busy guy with those magnets. Now we start with the keeper barricades and the engagement. It's going to be Resets credited with the kill, but it could have been Nesk equally as easily, as he was there taking the head-to-head fight as well. Alems now got himself to the top of electrical hatch. He's going to be able to destroy 1 keeper barrier, but very easily will that be replaced. The nade comes in now to 90. Ask gets dealt half damage, but the Toxic Babes are cutting BDS off, and their time has disappeared in this round.
Probably going to play on the understairs position. We'll wait to directly contest against anyone who tries to move forward here. But Lems, what an insertion! Just dashes in for Mehatch and steals 2 kills away. This is off the back of her Fall's pick as well, but a good stoppage now coming in. However, Ask, he gets too aggressive, ventures too far out, leaves it open. Palu does the same thing, and that'll seal the round for BDS off the back of that beautiful play from the Nook.
We have still not seen a defending side win Basement Blue. Have we woken up in an alternate reality?
It's very weird in this game right now.
It's feeling a little bit strange, I'm going to be honest with you. Had it not been for a huge play from Lems, and look at what that means to him, by the way, that round would have been in the dust for BDS. They had no chance whatsoever. The fact that they came away with it is fantastic. Liquid needs to do a little bit of soul searching there. They need to figure out just how they allowed that to happen. I believe that one of the players that LMs was able to take out there was actually in cameras at that last stage. At least they were stood very still, maybe looking to play on some utility, but just caught entirely flat-footed. A quick drop was all it took, and with nobody keeping their eyes on that electrical hatch, it was very easy for LMs to come through. It isn't a play to rest your hat on, though. You can't rely on that every single round, but that's all that BDS needed to become one round closer to Team Liquid here.
So BDS start to bring themselves back into the fold, and quite quickly off the back of yet another, as you mentioned, attacking win on the basement site here. Still sitting at a 0% win rate for both teams on this potential bottom floor site. We'll see if Liquid has better luck on the retry, as they're finally going to throw a little bit more of a curveball at this one, bringing out the Clash to maybe add a direct obstacle for members of BDS to have to play against, one that'll certainly be quite annoying to deal with here. Looking at BDS, though, still with 8 frag grenades. We'll have to see how well the defensive utility is lined up. Obviously, we saw Liquid get the utility gold star as they nearly gobbled up half of those nades in the previous round just off of the Wamai magnets, but it's going to have to certainly do the same thing again here. As, yeah, Alem's walking all the way down to the bottom. We haven't seen the full fallback from Liquid yet. Nesk is still at the back of top stairs. So Lems is realizing this. Obviously, he doesn't want to fully push into the site, as he could just as easily get himself picked off from a counter angle, but this is a very dangerous position to hold, especially if Liquid hasn't realized it yet.
I don't think that Liquid know. Lems has got himself into the Viper's nest. It's got a great angle through. Palu, please, you cannot make this mistake. You've got to check the angle, gets the glimpse. I think Palu's seen this. He knows exactly what's going on, and the call will now come through. Lems, your job now is to get out of there alive. We're starting to see this utility get chewed up once again, as a magnet will be there to eat up the nade. Lems does get dealt a good chunk of damage, and deservedly so. You cannot play that cheeky and repeatedly get away with it. Shago nearly dishes himself a little bit of damage with his nade, as PSK is doing a great job of chewing this utility up. And now that Lems has shifted, he can make that rotation back.
Half the nades are gone again, and once more, 0 damage has been done to any of the defenders here. So the utility is rough at the moment for BDS. Obviously, we got the caveat that some of those may have been used to knock out utility, but oftentimes we have seen them be deployed, specifically at PSK here, with 0 results landing on top of him so far because of the great support coming in from those Wamai magnets, as of course the other forms of utility coming into play here from Palu as well. Rest of BDS now starting to work their way down, getting into an execute position. We've got just over a minute left here, as they know they need to force the problem, specifically in Freezer against PSK, but directly contesting against this could end up being a Formula 4 disaster if they don't have a true way to end up getting past him. Mind you, not really any stuns to play into, not any that would severely affect PSK, like coming off of a Zofia lifeline charge or anything, so it's going to be a rough task to try and work themselves in through Freezer while PSK continues to stand in the way.
Renshiro's got a very difficult job here as well, solo pushing in through bunker. Lems looking to make a hatch drop again. Surely Liquid cannot fall for that 2 rounds in a row. Toxic Babes to try and stem the attacking push coming in through Laundry, as Rafal and Bredey are going to be lined up there. Bredey just going to go for a little bit of a double check or rotation now. He's only got 25 seconds, might be looking to buddy up with Lems here and try and get a plant down on the threshold. Still BDS waiting for the opportune moment. It's going to be a 5 versus 5 execute, 15 seconds and Lems hits the drop, gets down free as Ask shuts Shaiko down, knocking him to the floor. This time Nesk is there to collect. Resets jumps into the party as well. Rafal caught inside the barbed wire, goes for the revive. There's 4 seconds left. He ain't getting you up, my friend. Final couple of kills come through. Liquid, patience pays off. They win it out on time.
We'll see our first defensive win there on basement for either team, as Liquid is able to surge forward with that. Some rough start to this one, but is able to quickly correct. Now more than likely see them move up to their second floor defense next. The Clash works pretty much brilliantly, does exactly what they expected to do, builds on top of already the great utility mitigation they had coming in the last round, and stops that angle from cutting off the rest of the defenders into the site. Gives them the clarity they need to focus fully on denying those laundry backstairs and E-hatch drops, excuse me, to be able to cleanly close out on that round for Liquid.
Liquid have done something that BDS were not able to do. But they've done something that every defending team should be able to do here on Oregon. And at least we can now say that we have a round on the basement for the defenders. For BDS's sake, this is not looking too great. They need to start picking up some rounds, and they need to start picking them up quickly. I'm surprised we haven't seen a timeout yet. I feel like coming into round number 9, it probably would have been a good time for BDS to have a little bit of a conversation and a think about how they're choosing to approach things, because this one trick, Alem's crouch walking into sight, it's worked once, and then it hasn't worked. How many times can you use that same party trick in the same game?
It's definitely going to end up being a bit of an over-reliance on a bit of a gimmick, as we saw it used in the first round quite successfully, but as you noted, they had Overwatch with 2 different players established against it there. Had the one at Pillars gone down, there was another player in the site that could have easily shut that down as well, so they were more than ready for it on the second go-around. BDS needs to be more innovative than that if they want to find success on these repeated sites. Could, on the pause mark, just be waiting to see how this second site plays out as well before they potentially go for that, but obviously, if we see Liquid close this one down, the pause, in my opinion, is going to come in too late, as Liquid will already be at 6 rounds, and then BDS are going to need to look at a full rotation perfectly, as they'll need to pick up 3 in a row just to be able to send it to overtime.
Shaiko getting droned in here to bedroom, catches out a little bit of utility, as does the shock drone at his feet. Alem's looking to make his crouch walk play through. We do have Ask inside of meeting, so could be looking to make some sort of a rotation, although he needs to be mindful he doesn't get pinched here. Lems could be chasing shadows there in the basement, as we can see that there are no Liquid defenders in there. And instead, they're just going to use this time to gather a little bit more info. Playday waiting to try and get this exothermic charge off, but it's most likely going to get tricked off. This is something that Liquid did a lot yesterday against SSG. They were very consistent on that impact trick.
Can't immediately throw down the second one either. They're actually going to double stack the Kiba barricades. Lems continuing to be dirty as ever. Then waltzes right into the back of meeting room and is going to find Ask. I'm pretty sure with his phone out as well, so pops his head right off. Early kill for BDS, but now will they continue to build upon this? They are having trouble getting open that walk-in hatch, which once again is a core part of the execution strategy here. So will they continue to try and play into that, or are they going to back up and look for other options, especially now that they've got the sentry towards meeting, opening up the back end a little bit more cleanly for themselves?
The amount of space that Lems is finding here for his team is incredible. Looking now to get a little bit of a depth charge from below, and that will be successful. Picks himself up a second as he's just getting fed here. The wall can now be opened as the threat of impact tricking has gone, but PSK, how long can you survive? 1 versus 5, a flawless for BDS.
Absolutely beautiful from Lems as the hero in pretty much every single aspect of that round. Opens up the execute route with that depth charge from below, and then the 2 kills on top of it, of course, to make it 3 on the round overall, but it was that nade kill that left the room of opportunity open for the rest of his squad to thrust themselves directly into the site without any further delay, especially with the 5v2 it had already put down to at that point. Shaiko, as we see here, one more player able to clean that up quite nicely to put another round on the board for BDS, putting them only 1 round behind Team Liquid here at 5-4.
Much needed round for BDS. If they're able to level things up now, things could start to get very competitive indeed. We do go to a tertiary site. Liquid not wanting to mess around on that Kidstorm defense any longer, and instead are going to switch things up and take us down into meeting. I think it's probably a good play because they didn't really hold on too well there, and BDS had a lot of problem-solving capability in that last round. Someone that you've got to look to try and shut down early, though, is going to be Lems. You need to try and get some sort of a handle on that. Liquid aren't really bringing anything too specific just because of how wide he's entering in onto the map. There's a lot of places he can just sneak in for free. You can't defend everything. but I think it's something that Liquid needs to be a lot more mindful of moving forward, because that little solo play that Alems is pulling off is really starting to hurt.
It is leading to a bit of a top-heavy factor for BDS as well. You can see this Alems obviously leading at 12-7. The next highest teammate, at least in terms of fragging capability, is Rafal, sitting down at 6-6. And it continues to go further down from that as we look at the rest of the team as well. So the team really almost relying on Alems to some extent to be able to pick up these opening kills, and as we saw in the last round, open up pathways for the team to actually get into the site. If he goes down early on, that's going to cause a massive delay and will more than likely be a much easier time for Liquid to close out the rest of the elements inside of that round.
Liquid are going to be spreading themselves fairly thinly here. We've got a presence on that top floor. Nesk's just going to drop himself down. Opted to play the Warden this time, feeling that the threat of the flash grenades is going to be substantial enough to warrant it. And of course, the potential for the smokes as well, although none have been brought. Oh, sorry, two have been brought here by Renshiro on the Ossa, so could really come in to be quite a hit with that. Looks like we're going to start to get this back wall open, however. Playday is just going to give himself a little bit of an option to dip out there if the going gets a little bit too tough, and with the Alems playing below, you can be rest assured that there's no Nitro Cell going to hop up through that hatch.
Got BDS starting to put pressure into this. At the same time, you can see Ask over here looking to try and resist it. He's not going to be able to shoot at that Rotero drone. That sends him back behind one of his Keepa barricades, but also directly on top of a nade as well. Won't fully knock him out, though, and he does have a little bit of cover to play. He's going to try to back up into the kitchen, though, where the res will be a lot less risky, but still, Renshiro picking up yet another kill, and there's the confirmation via Rotero drone as well onto Ask. That takes him out of the play entirely. Renshiro gets a second pickup here, finally putting some numbers on the board for him as well, as BDS are thrusting through this defensive lineup from Liquid without too much of an issue. PSK and Palu, the only two left. Palu finally with the counter for the Alems, but it's not really going to matter here. Playday immediately picks up the trade. The plant will go down. An attempt from PSK to get into the Lion's nest there, but it won't work out. And we see BDS find another round that'll tie us up at 5-all.
Best thing about that round is that the actual execute of opening the wall and really starting to put pressure on Meetin didn't have a lot to do with Alems. Alems was below and he was making sure it was clear, so he was a part of it, but he wasn't there sneaking in, getting kills. It wasn't that reliance on that solo play. He was able to grab one, but ultimately that was a very small part in what was a much bigger round and a much more team play oriented round from BDS. Now they've managed to gain level, and that's huge considering the first split. Let's see how Liquid choose to approach this one then. They're going to opt for the clash again. It is something that worked for them back in round number 7. Round number 8, I think, actually. So the clash is going to be brought out there again by PSK. And they're going to go for the two catchers. They're going to go for the Wamai and they're going to go for the Jaeger. There's no reason not to. The magnets have been so good from Liquid. I don't think we've seen many nades, if any, really get in and get through that initial defensive utility that Liquid are placing out there. And obviously for BDS, that's something to be more mindful of moving forward. But they're going to be coming out with some choice picks of their own. Rafal's actually locked in the Kali.
Should be interesting to see. Obviously, we don't see Kali played in too often. It is occasionally brought in as kind of a desperate attempt to replace a Thatcher, especially with the sight lines that'll be played out here inside of the basement.
Reloading.
Not necessarily going to get a whole lot of use out of that sniper rifle due to just how slow it can be to utilize, but she's got a pretty decent secondary SMG to play into as well, so not going to be completely out of her element. Obviously, we're going to be bringing her in to use those thumpers, though, to try and knock out utility sitting on the other side of the wall and allow for them to have better sight lines going into this site, hopefully being able to avoid the problem of the clash. To start it out, though, I'm dead wrong about the snipers. They get a winning angle against Ask, get the leg shot against him, and he goes right down into the grave here. Should still be able to be revived potentially, but that's going to rely on some of the other members of Liquid not being preoccupied here. PSK getting the stun off, holding the Finka back, but quickly losing control over this construction side hall as well. Liquid are going to need to be careful as we are quickly seeing BDS gain more and more ground, and it's too much of a distraction as Alems is allowed to insert himself on the back stairs. No one is watching it. That's going to be Pandora's box opened up, but hold on now, Liquid, they're fighting back. Nesk with 3 out of nowhere. Alems is going to have to fight for his life here as he's the only one remaining. And Liquid once again shut out a defensive round here in the basement. Great correction from Nesk and the rest of Liquid to bring it back, as things were looking a bit dodgy on that construction push.
Nesk has just slammed a door in BDS's face right there. He has gone, you might have all these fancy Flores drones and this fancy sniper rifle that you've been able to down my teammate with. But guess what? I'm still here and I am still fighting. A little quick rush strategy is not going to work against us here today. Liquid, they get put onto a map point here in our first map of this best of 3.
We said before, that needs to be a consecutive run for Liquid, and the good news is they have started that sequence of unlocking the sites they've already won, meaning that they'll now be able to return to the upstairs holder. Actually, I think that might still be... It's kind of interesting here, as I recall correctly now, and that was actually picked up by BDS, was never locked away in the first place.
I'm not sure why they're going here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by the decision too. You heard me.
They've got a clear idea of what they want to do differently. I mean, I guess the wall got open last time and it was very straightforward. Even BDS shot, look, they're making changes. They're like, guys, panic. We need to abort the top floor plan. These crazy guys have gone to meeting.
So BDS is going to be thrown off by this one a little bit. That may be part of the plan for Liquid here, subvert the expectations slightly. Obviously, attacker repick is going to get in the way of messing up their operator selections. Still, we've seen the expected picks come through here. The OSI shield specifically going to be hugely crucial for Ensure and the rest of BDS to establish positioning further into meeting room. Once they are able to get that back wall open, we still don't have any active resistance coming in onto that wall either from Liquid, so not going to be easy for them to potentially stem the tide of the execute happening in the same exact way that it did just a few rounds back.
Playday was obviously a big part of the previous attack onto here and getting that wall open and really focusing on getting that plant down. There was a good little bit of nade play as well, in and amongst the Flores Rotero drones. File doing a great job to reposition defenders that were still hanging around inside of meeting. Aside from that, Liquid weren't really too close to this round. They had that little bit of an extension. We're gonna have to have a little bit more here. Shaiko already getting himself into the action, shuts Nest down, picks himself up a second as Ask is gonna be the next to fall. That's the wall now gonna be open. Resets, grabs one back. It may be a little bit too late though, as the breach already has been open. Palu forced to now start taking some really extended gunfights here. He's only got the MX4 Storm to deal with. BDS have that advantage.
Just giving her way too much to Shaiko there, but still BDS not necessarily with the confidence to play it forward just yet. Shaiko himself is still going to be a little bit low. Should still have 2, I'm assuming, Adrenal Surges ready to go, though, once he gets himself off drones. Indeed, he'll be able to bring his HP back up to around 75%, assuming he delays it all the way to the point where he can use that second surge, but you see the execute boil through at some point, too. Gets a little bit panicked about someone flanking down the long haul, so he's going to chuck out both of his nades to stem the tide on that. And I believe because of his low HP, he's just going to be left to establish Overwatch here, while the rest of the team worries about pushing back in. Lems waiting for an opportunity. We saw him go for this back flank last time as well, but you can see Resets already in position to counter this and not being too adventurous about it either. Palu very much looking towards the same thing here, so Lems is going to have a tough task making his own impact. The good news, though, is that this distraction of a Lems on the back end is leaving the site itself quite vulnerable. Save for the one player in Kitchen, we could see a pretty clean push be made right now by the members of BDS, but they are going to want to use their Rotero drones to get a little bit of extra intel as well as clear out the utility. What a dash in there from Palu, though. Picks up the one. Resets, tries to contend against the Lems, but he can't land the shot, and Palu is lost as the peek comes through. The nade against Resets will also down him. PSK trades out for one, but he hasn't been able to deny this plant. Only has taken down the player moving in from the front end. Needs to try and get the planter here and now, otherwise it's going to be such a tough retake. Won't pull it off, though. Playday escapes. Rafal's also worked himself up to the top of the stairs, and in a moment, we'll have access to that hatch here, so it's a rough one for PSK, but if they want to end the game, he's got to clutch this one out here and now. Has access to that diffuser, can try and bait out some of the presence by tapping it real quick, but he's focused too much on the fragging. Goes right out into a flash. Plenty of time, still repositions, just guessing as to where these players could be right now as he's lost the plot entirely. Trying to lock one of them down, but just can't get it done. Maybe able to get the first, and there we go. There's the pickup, but he only has 3 seconds to get onto the case and stick it here. Will be going for it, but I'm pretty sure he got onto it too late, and he's still up Playday moving in to shut things down. BDS will trigger overtime.
Great round from BDS. They did exactly the same attack as we saw previously, and it worked in exactly the same manner. Albeit a lot closer that round than previous, but a round is still a round regardless of how close it is. Lems is doing such a good job of distracting so much attention. Palu and Resets, they knew that he was going to be pushing. They knew exactly that he was going to be pushing through that side. Now, Palu assumed main door, and quite rightly so. It's one of the first angles you can check. don't think they were anticipating the garage. Obviously, that's what Resets was there for. And I think Resets just missed a couple of shots. A little bit unfortunate there. But had that kill come through a lot earlier, it would have been very easy then for Liquid to reinforce the site and throw a few more bodies at the problem. Now, they have been given defense first on the overtime, and they are going to go downstairs. But statistically, Blue, this isn't a fantastic site for the defenders, but I'm sure that Liquid are relaxed enough knowing that they can get the job done down here.
Liquid do at least have a winning record on this one, with 2 winning attempts and 1 losing attempt so far, and this has been mainly off of the back of the clash that unfortunately the members of BDS have not really been able to successfully deal with just as of yet. Something like a Zofia may be able to help out, but the problem is, again, the utility from Liquid with regard to their nade mitigation, specifically from Ness Swamai, has just been way too strong here, so I don't think they want to take a risk on that, potentially leave some of those getting eaten up. So BDS will still stick with generally the same lineup as before. Going to see 6 nades coming in this time, so they lower that amount just a tad. But overall, it is going to bring the expected roster needed to try and assault this site. Still will need to find a way to get past PSK, though, as that has been the thorn in their side for both of the losing basement attacks so far.
It's kind of strange because usually you'd really want to get defense on Oregon in an overtime, but BDS probably quite happy on the attack. They've performed much better on the attack so far today. So they're probably feeling that they got a pretty good deal out of this all as well. Of course, it all remains to be seen as to how they choose to play their hand. Alems isn't going to be on the Nook this time. He's instead going to be on the Iana, so you're looking for a little bit more utility. Still bring the 2 nades, but you do bring those Gemini clones that you can use to gather a little bit more information at some points inside the round. And in some cases used to burn up some laser gates, but we don't have any of those here for the defense on Liquid. They are instead sticking to what has worked previously, and that has been the catchers, namely the magnets from Wamai. They've done a fantastic job of eating up a lot of this utility that BDS throw on in, and of course they have the clash as well.
Quite across the map as BDS look for the appropriate path to move forward. PSK almost gets caught on the timing here. He moves himself a little bit deeper into Freezer to avoid getting picked off at the back end of the hatch. Chiro has completed clearing out the 2nd floor, and I believe the rest of the team has already scouted things out for the main floor, so you can begin focusing up on the descent. But again, that brings up the glaring issue that we already talked about towards the beginning of this round. How do they get past the clash? How do they properly leverage their utility to push themselves into Freezer, as this is held strong at least 2 times in a row, once being positioned here in the same exact spot in Freezer, and once having adjusted it over towards the construction push as well. Changing up the strat is not necessarily going to be the winning formula here for BDS. They have to try and find a way to get past it. And so far, they're going to be able to knock out the smoke, which will certainly help out in their time game a bit, removes those toxic babes from the delay. Let's see now how the rest of the team can try to move forward further into E. This is also going to draw the attention of PSK finally away from that Freezer area.
PSK getting spread a little bit thin here. He feels like he needs to be in the freezer and on blue at the same time. Ness just going to be holding on to those back stairs. But there has been a drop in through the hatch. It doesn't matter. He's going to get taken out from the back stairs as Paolu looks to try and stabilize. Misses his shots. Rafal there to take him out. Shaiko Alems flawless. BDS storm through the basement.
It's going to be a big win coming in from BDS. They're even better, too, constantly getting the better of Liquid's aggression inside of that final team fight, catching them pushing out on at least 2 to 3 different avenues. And unfortunately, BDS, or rather Liquid in some respects, just getting distracted, as we saw at least for one player there hiding on the outside of the electrical wall, gets tripped up by those X-Kairos that were thrown onto the wall. And as that was happening, a player from the backstairs pushed down, took him down. We saw a few other examples of things similar to that happening. It led to a quick elimination of that defensive roster, allowing for BDS to take charge here, moving them up 7-6. One more round away now from being able to close out on map number 1.
Where do they go is the question. Where do they take us? They do.
They
take us downstairs.
No way. Why would you not go for the 2nd floor hold?
I'm pretty gobsmacked at this from BDS. They haven't won downstairs once today on defense. And they think overtime match point, yeah, it's as good a time as any.
And I'm not crazy. They won both of their upstairs defenses.
Yeah, yeah, they won dorms like clean.
Well, clearly BDS has something in the making for the strategy to try and win this one out.
10 seconds remaining.
Otherwise could have gone for the safe pick upstairs, like we said before, winning both of those inside of regulation, and at least one of them in pretty convincing fashion too, but not feeling it for overtime. They think they've made the adjustments here in the basement, so let's see if that's going to be the case or if the attackers will continue to surge in win rate here on this site.
Team Liquid don't know the look at the minute. They're like, are you sure? Like, do I need to check with my drone as well?
Do we need to rehost this? You sure you guys didn't misclick or something?
Yeah, like, PSK, are you absolutely sure that that was the site? PSK's like, yeah, I told you, like, they've gone downstairs. Yeah, I promise. Maybe BDS just defaulted. They're just like, yeah, basement. We'll have to see. They may have a little bit of a strategy. They may have something, a bit of a point to prove potentially that they want to try and do something slightly different. Or they're just realizing that Liquid can't rely on winning that execute every single time. It's a very finely tuned thing, the way that Liquid have been attacking. They've been pushing through freezer, laundry, bunker, backstairs. There's been at least 3 of those areas all involved in the push at every single one. So if one of those doesn't work, if one of those fails, it weakens the entire execute. And maybe BDS are looking to try and take advantage of that.
Slow work either way. Both teams have had their fill of aggression here for these basement holds and have realized that it's not really going to lead to a whole lot. That's all cooled off as of a few rounds back in regulation here, just leading into that standard bunker setup really for both teams. Obviously, Liquid having a bit of a variation might bring the clash into it, but BDS is going to give us the usual suspects to hold downstairs and hold for pretty much the entire round. Liquid, of course, now realizing this, begin to open up the hatch plane. Will start to scout things out with their own drone work to look for the appropriate way to try and wriggle themselves into this setup and hopefully be able to take yet another attacking victory down here.
Palu gathering a lot of important info on the drone. Shaiko playing his spot. Does have a couple of these cameras out there, and that one has a nice line of sight into meeting. You can get a couple of glimpses there if you place it just inside the rim of the hatch. Resets. Looking like he's going to be pushing down these main stairs. He knows he's got quite a bit of utility to burn on through, and he's going to deploy the Gon6 first. A little bit of a drone to back that up as Palu throws his utility into freezer as well. With that wall open, it's not going to be so straightforward to just walk on down freezer, especially when Rafala's there ready to peek. But under the cover of the flashes, they can get the job done. Playday draws first blood. Rafala's going to be down next and kills Dutre, but BDS are coming up on top. Ask, you've got a lot of work to do here, my friend, as he draws for the bearing, cannot find the next. Alems, the man of the match, has closed things out there for BDS.
BDS proving even us wrong on that final round there, showing us that they can finally close out on one of those basement defenses. The winning strategy apparently is just go out and fight the members of Team Liquid in the halls. Beautifully done either way by BDS as they're able to take control.